warm welcome to all our guests, existing customers, prospect customers, as well as industry colleagues. You're through to the exclusive Corporate Traveller webinar, where we're talking business travel readiness, as well as post-COVID market trends. I'm really excited. Big honor for me to be moderating this session, particularly because of my panel. Introducing the panel, I've got FCTG Managing Director, Andrew Stark. I've got the Corporate Traveller General Manager, Oz Desai. Europcar Chief Executive Officer, what an honor, Martin Lydall. And Radisson Hotel Group Regional Africa Director, William McIntyre. Welcome, gentlemen. Look forward to the chat. Remember to pop your questions into the Q&A below your screens, and I'll get our experts to respond to those. Remember to follow Corporate Traveller RSA on all our social media platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, as well as Facebook. I'm really excited, so I'm going to jump right into it. Oz, I want to start with you. So particularly around traveller confidence, it's been a huge barrier in seeing business travel recover. Do we still see the same sort of apprehension during this period? Steps would you say business travellers should look to get back to the world?
Good afternoon, everybody. Afternoon, Lance. Thank you for coordinating. So definitely excited to have you host us, and hopefully an eventful afternoon with good information for our customers. So yeah, to your question, it's been a long 12 months. It's been almost exactly 12 months or a year since we started traveling again after the hard lockdowns. And as travel's re-emerged, we've learned what we've always known, that South Africans are incredibly resilient. When we started off in June, July last year, we were pretty much at no airlift and very little travel happening. And over the last 12 months, from a domestic perspective, we've seen those volumes get to about 50% of where we were pre-COVID. So South Africans are getting used to the protocols, quite comfortable from a domestic perspective, and liberally traveling from a business perspective. The international front has been a little bit more tricky. Restrictions opened up the latter half of 2020, and as soon as that happened, we saw the numbers really ramp up from an international perspective, and the early adopters really started traveling. And since then, so in the last 12 months, we've moved over about 16,000 people internationally and safely. So I think there is definitely an appetite for people to travel internationally. I know some countries and there are limitations with countries, and some companies have mandates around vaccines, but there is international travel happening. And definitely on the domestic front, we've seen those volumes pick up month on month over the last 12 months.
Great news there, Oz. And I think I like that you mentioned that we are definitely seeing some travel volumes come through. That's great. Andrew, I'm going to move to you. I recently read an article that you published in the Business Day, which is all about these vaccines. So vaccines seems to be the buzzword. But I wanted to ask you a specific question here. So Europe has now probably opened up its borders to vaccinated travelers. This is probably a big major step for the travel industry. We'll hear a lot more about these vaccines, but how do we expect this rollout to boost traveller and traveller confidence in the coming months?
Lance, I think it's all about the vaccine, isn't it? It's the race to get the vaccine. And I think, a country that's demonstrating this exceptionally well is America. And I'm a firm believer they're probably going to lead the way in this regard. They've vaccinated more than 40 to 50% of the population, first jabs. And what they're doing is they're starting to fly and they're starting to travel without masks, and they're sort of opening up themselves to travel once more. So I get a lot of confidence in seeing what America's doing, because I think they will lead the way. And then if you turn your focus more to the east, they've certainly clammed up. As much as they've got a vaccination program in most parts of China, we've seen Australasia, it's non-existent at this point in time. So I think they are watching America, and we've just seen the European Union last week also open up to say, well, if you've been vaccinated, you're more than welcome to come into our country. I think the South African landscape, it's a slow slog. We've seen our program start off very, very slowly. And the reality is we've got the capacity to probably vaccinate up to 350,000 people a day. And that's if private and government start working together very quickly. And I think if we do, within 100 days, you've got 35 million people vaccinated. And if that is the case, South Africans could have international long-haul travel open up for them probably by the end of 2021. And what it means is we've got to get off red list countries. So, what they are sort of taking into their calculations is a percentage of the population that has either been vaccinated or not been vaccinated. And if you haven't been vaccinated, we're probably going to sit on the red list country for a long period of time. So I suppose that's the only way out of this from an international long-haul perspective. But what we have seen from a domestic perspective and a South African perspective is they've been very resilient, South Africans. Domestics at all-time high. 90% of our transactions across, corporate and leisure are domestic transactions, and that will continue for as long as we remain on red list countries.
Absolutely, Andrew. I think what you say there is definitely the vaccine has a pivotal role to play in this recovery. So thank you for that. Also, I'm going to go back to you, particularly around aviation. So we've seen some airlines pull out of the country. Some say they're going to come and then they postpone again. What does this mean in terms of availability of flights and probably the pricing for South Africans and globally?
Yeah, I think, every time I see a new airline coming into South Africa or another domestic airline taking off or adding additional capacity, I'm quite excited. So we're pretty much in a very good space domestically. Most of the carriers have been flying for 6, 9, 12 months at this point. There is, really good airlift. We've seen additional time slots coming about, which is good. And it's really ensured really well-priced tickets from a domestic perspective. And most routes are now covered again with the major carriers taking up the domestic front. International has been trickier. It took us probably 6 or 9 months post-COVID to get international flights scheduled into South Africa again. And there are limitations. We're probably in the region of between 20 and 35% of the international carriers that we had pre-COVID. Quite a lot of that is Africa focus, which again has been the key driver because Africa allows South Africans in and a lot of business happens into Africa. And then your major flag carriers, really Qatar leading the way, Air France, KLM, Turkish. So there is definitely capacity, not as many schedules. And what we are seeing in certain aspects is that due to limited airlift, pricing is a little bit higher. So it's a supply and demand curve. But as more open up and as restrictions change, we foresee that pricing will normalize as there'll be a drive to get demand up again. So the same pattern we've seen on domestic front, it kind of spiked, and now with all the airlines flying again, or most of them flying again, the pricing is looking really competitive. We expect to see a similar trend on the international front, where in certain routes with limited availability, pricing might go up, but as more airlines fly back, which we love from a South African perspective, our competitive pricing will definitely come into the fray again.
Absolutely, I think that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned something quite key there, is that the availability affects the pricing. So how much airlift is allowed obviously will affect how much things would cost, which makes quite a lot of sense. So moving away from aviation, now into car rental. So I'm going to move to Marty. Marty, extensive measures have been taken by the car rental industry to encourage, safe return to travel. Do you feel these measures have helped kind of adjust and boost those car rental volumes?
Excuse me. Thanks very much for having me on the panel. Really great to be here. I think absolutely. I think customers, particularly corporate customers, have a duty of care to their staff and their employees. And they want to make sure that when they do require them to travel, they look after them as best that they can. And therefore, they want to make sure that they use suppliers, hotels, airlines, and car rental companies that are able to look after customers. I think all of us are in a similar position, that we're very good at processes in our business in terms of our normal quality regimes and what we do to make every single transaction an awesome experience. And therefore, it was relatively easy for us to get a very high level of confidence that we could do what we needed to do to protect our customers and our staff, for that matter, through the journeys with us and wherever they touch our people or our cars. And therefore we're able to limit exposure quite dramatically. And as soon as we were able to present that and evidence it and show people the care that we do take, I think we built the right level of confidence to let people come back and use our services.
Absolutely. So are we saying that safety then becomes that main concern? What other concerns are travelers coming through with before booking car rental? I'll stay with you, Noddy.
I think, as Oz just alluded to with regards to the airline capacity, car rental is slightly different from the hotel in the air in that we're in the fortunate position to be able to adjust our capacity to meet the demand. So in the South African market between March last year and March this year, the overall industry fleet's probably about half what it was before. That comes with its own challenges, but the primarily from a customer perspective is, there are short pockets of demand where demand exceeds supply. So that creates availability issues and also price issues. So those are, I think, are probably the primary issues that customers face. Otherwise, I think the players in the industry are big and solid, all part of big groups. Are there to stay, and we're slowly but surely building our capacity back up to be able to address all the demand issues or demand that's in the business.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that you make there. So no industry really operates in silos. So see that airlines play a role, car rental plays a role, and moving straight into William with the accommodation. I've got a question for you, William. With regards to companies and advice when booking accommodation for their next trip, what are kind of things that they need to think through when selecting a preferred hotel? William, are you there?
He's on mute.
Sorry, guys. The comments that Martin made about being able to bring the people back because of the hygiene and the safety and security side of traveling at the moment. We've always, all of us in all of the industries that we're in, we've always held a high bar when it comes to cleanliness, hygiene, safety, etc. But people traveling to hotels have got that same issue. A hotel is full of people, and you spend half your life trying to stay away from people. So you're getting into a plane, you're getting in a car, somebody else has been there. So what we had to do was that we had to prove that we were clean, hygienic, safe. And we partnered with SGS, the world leader in inspection and verification. So within a few months of the lockdown, we had certified all of our hotels as SGS safe and clean. And now that we are still in the COVID situation, we've had to go back and reiterate that. So now it's going to become an annual event or an annual process within the hotels that, your question was, what advice do you give someone looking for a hotel? The first and foremost needs to be that be sure that you're placing yourself into a safe and clean environment. We've got social distancing protocols. We've got remote check-in, check-out protocols. We've changed the way that we interact with the guest in the hotel. So for me, it has to be the initial consideration. You need to have confidence in the place that you're going to end your journey. We're at the end of the supply chain. When you're on the plane in a mask, you get a car, it's been sanitized and cleaned and nice covers there. And then you walk into a hotel and all of a sudden you're confronted with all these people, both staff and guests. So I think the first and foremost, you have to make sure that you've got the confidence to travel and the confidence in your final destination is that you're still going to be safe enough to enjoy your experience and conduct your business. So that has to be the beginning and the end of everything. Until we get the vaccinations, to Andrew's point, is the only way to protect yourself is through the basic COVID protocols.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point around the protocols. everyone's got probably a role to play to ensuring that, we curb the spread of this deadly virus. Just a reminder to everyone to pop their questions in the Q&A below your screen. I will make sure that we get our panelists, our experts to get to those. William, I'm going to stay with you. You mentioned the protocols and wearing your mask. There's also the sanitization that's necessary. But with the hotels also comes, a level of being close to someone else. What does that look like from a product mix perspective? Are we seeing more single rooms, double rooms, sharing? I'm even hearing things about, self-catering. What options are looking like? What trends are we picking up?
It's an interesting phenomenon, actually, that globally across the entire COVID period, the one aspect of hospitality with residential components, Radisson residence, etc., long stay, there's been that room type and that accommodation type has grown through COVID. We're seeing more and more requests coming through from developers for long stay apartment style accommodation in line with the international brands. And conversely to that, there's a decrease in requests for sharing rooms. And when we do have meetings or conventions, etc., traditionally the corporates would take twin rooms and people would share. Now there's none of that, even to the point where we're starting to see corporates asking for buyouts. We've got 100 delegates in the area. We've got a 120 bedroom hotel. No, we want all of it because we don't want to expose our employees to anyone else. We've practiced good hygiene protocols within the business, so we're bringing everybody in a group. And in some events, we've actually had to test and quantify or qualify how safe the staff component is, where we've put, say, if you take that 120 room hotel, we had 20 rooms with staff in an isolation period before the event would come. So we've had to go to extremes to ensure that social distancing, etc. But even after having said all of that, with the South African market and the vast majority of what we're doing at the moment is local business, you're starting to see clients ask for face-to-face meetings. So to cope with that, our meetings and event space has changed quite dramatically. The capacities, notwithstanding the limitations set by government, but the capacity of the rooms have changed because the setups have changed. And then we've moved to this type of meeting where we've got hybrid rooms where you've got an executive committee in a room and then a hybrid Zoom type link. We've actually partnered with Zoom to set these rooms up where the exco will be in a room, but they'll be speaking to management teams spread out across the business. So it has changed, it is different, but it's continuing to change. It's continuing to evolve as the restrictions are relaxed or increased again. We have to be completely flexible, completely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you touched on
socially distanced.
Yeah, you touch on flexibility and agility, William, which I think is quite key. And something I didn't think about is definitely the staff complement and making sure they're just as safe so as to not spread the virus to guests, etc. Andrew, I'm gonna come back to you again. I think I like this topic around the vaccines, and I'm trying to unpack it a little bit more. So if you can spend a bit more time around this. What do we need to do to kind of get the government, to ramp up getting some of these needles into more South African arms? What would you say kind of the process looks like? I know you alluded to, involving the private sector. What other measures need to take place there?
Well, look, I think what we've got to do is get over the third wave. I think everyone's waiting for the third wave. I see news headlines. We're going to have a family meeting again. I think we want to get over the third wave, and I think we're all confident once we get over the third wave, things will really start opening up once more. And I think by that stage, we probably got more, sort of needles in arms, and the world will start realizing that we've got to learn to live with this virus. And I really wanted to probably back up William and Martin there. Is having traveled domestically quite a lot over the last 12 months, is that it's probably never been the safest time to travel, be it in a car, hotel, or on aircrafts. It's clean, and I remember, staying in hotels and people saying that, the dirtiest apparatus in a room is a remote control. Well, today that remote control is so sanitized and washed and folded and wrapped like never before. And it's a real pleasant time to travel. And I remember when we first started traveling after the first wave, all the forms and the sort of all the protocols, and those are still there, but that's certainly now just become part of the norm with regards to traveling. So I think what we are seeing in the corporate space is those corporate travelers that are not fearful of traveling and have been traveling and are getting used to the new norm in travel. And then you get some corporate travelers who haven't traveled whatsoever in the last 12 to 15 months, who are actually fearful of traveling. And I think our message has to be one of, don't be fearful of traveling. As long as we adhere to protocols and we adhere to the social distancing, our supplier network, who we do business with, have got the stringent protocols in place. But it's actually a pleasure to travel. So yeah, going back to your question, Lance, I think we've got to get over this third wave. We've got to increase the number of jabs in arms very quickly, and maybe that's post this third wave. And I think hopefully the government's seen in the last 2 weeks that they need the infrastructure of private sector to actually get the logistics of these jabs moving in the right direction. And the reality is we probably need more jabs landing on our shores that we are able to put into South Africans' arms.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Andrew. And I think when you mentioned the third wave and the family meeting, I get a bit nervous, expecting what will come from our president today, or whenever he decides to address us. Andrew, there's been
but I don't know why. I don't know why we get nervous. I think we've certainly. You think about the experience we've had in the last 15 months and how we felt this time last year. I think we're certainly a lot more agile. And I think Martin said that, or William said that, is we have to be far more agile and we've got to move with the times. And I think what we'll see is probably a very short lockdown period of some sorts. But we don't see forecast that it's going to restrict any sort of domestic or international restricted travel that we have in place right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say this, and it sticks with me. We've got to learn as South Africans to live with the virus, which is quite profound, I think. Andrew, I've heard a lot around health passports, but I think a lot of us are not really understanding what that means. Are you able to just unpack that a bit for us, just to kind of put us at ease?
Yeah, well, I don't know what that means either, Lance. So you're asking the wrong person. No, I'm joking. I think for us there's a lot of complexity when it comes to this health passport. There's varying pharmaceutical companies, obviously that profess to have a better vaccine than others. We know when re-entering into the US, you need 4 types. They're only sort of vouch for 4 types of vaccines. So what happens when you travel to the east? What are they going to vouch for? So I think there is going to be complexity down the line. I think there is going to be some central repository of people's information, as in who hasn't or who has had the jab. We still maintain it might be going back to the old-fashioned, yellow fever passport that you got to carry with you with your passport. But certainly, I know our heart is working on things. We're working on a portal for all our corporate customers. But right now, I think it's a race to get a vaccine in the arm, and I don't think many people are necessarily looking at the logistics around the repository of data and who's had what jabs. But I think that has to happen. It certainly does. Airlines are looking at it. Our art is looking at it, and we're certainly looking at it as well. So it's probably not far away.
Absolutely, Andrew. Yeah, and I think that's, again, the importance of partnering up with the TMC, that stays on top of this information for you, for the best advice, which is something that you always got to keep in mind of. I'm going to move back to you, Martin. Obviously the playing field has changed quite drastically. And with some of the trends that we've been seeing happening right now, it's quite indicative. What's happened in the car rental industry, particularly around trends of transactions in specific? Are people booking cars for longer, etc.? If you can just expand on that for us.
Yeah, I think the overall length of the industry has increased, but not so much because of the change of behavior of the traveler, but more because those that do travel are traveling for longer periods of time for bigger projects, etc. And the short 1 or 2 day Cape Town, Durban, Joburg trips are much less regular. And I think that might be because those short trips are easier to accommodate by the technology that we're sitting and using on now. I think I was thinking about it before, is the big companies, the large corporates that really drive duty of care and safety, etc., are, I still think, very reluctant to travel. But having said that, someone once said to me, this crisis has shown that you can definitely work from home, but it's also shown that you can't build a company culture from home. And I think it is important for all businesses to get out, see their customers and see their teams, etc. I think the audience of this event know that the shine and the sexiness of travel wears off very quickly when it comes to a corporate thing. So business people travel because they need to, and they need to get business done and drive teams. I mean, even in the World Cup 2020, whenever it was, I forget now, but the World Cup 2010, we thought we'd see a massive drop-off because of the prices, and yet our customers traveled a considerable amount because they need to. I also think that we're seeing a lot more SME business and small business travel compared to the big corporates, the big banks, the big insurance companies, big health companies. They've all really sort of put the brakes on quite aggressively, and it's very difficult for people in those organizations to travel even if they want to. But I think the smaller micro enterprises are less adverse to that risk, and they can manage it themselves a bit better. I think maybe there's a more of a responsibility of the traveler, a shared responsibility of the traveler, as opposed to the responsibility taken just by the company. And therefore, we're seeing a surprising amount of volume in that space, and it's evidenced by the method of payment that we see. So there's still very good credit card demand, so individuals and small companies traveling, as opposed to big corporates that are more on accounts or bill-back basis.
Yeah. So yeah, certainly encouraging to hear that the SME business is still moving, which is quite a good thing. Martin, I want to chat more around innovation and change. What are some of the things that are happening behind the scenes that some of our customers can expect from the car rental industry?
The one positive I think that you can take out of the COVID crisis is that it's going to accelerate the innovation that we want to have in our businesses. I mean, all of us are trying to make it simpler, easier, quicker for our customers to experience our services. And there are huge amounts of technologies that are out there to enable it. Those are sometimes complex or difficult to integrate into older, more developed systems. But because of the need now from a COVID perspective, it accelerates that rate of change. We think that we can envisage a situation in car rental where customers need to touch a rental agent at all. They can progress it straight to a car. I mean, drivers and keyless cars are not something that's too far down the line. But in the interim, before that technology becomes available, we can pre-register you, take your driver's license, take your payment details, etc., and you basically walk through our kiosk straight to a car, and there was somewhere there to get it out to you. And on the converse, when you return, it's very similar. So in car rental is maybe a little bit different from other parts of the hospitality business. We think that our customers want to spend as little time with us as possible and just get back on their journey. And so we're investing in technologies that enable that. And I think that we'll see more and more of that in a very short space of time, not years, in months.
Yeah. Yeah, which is great. Martin, I'm gonna let you take the first question that's coming from our attendees here, and it's specific around car rental. And the question says, what is a car rental doing to work with airlines with regards to scheduling, renter, and arrival at depots after curfew? Which is, I think, a very good question.
I'm sorry, Lance, just broke up there and I didn't get the full question. You mind asking it again, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So what does the car rental industry do to work with airlines with regards to rescheduling a renter when arriving at the airport after curfew?
So the industry, and the deal that we have with the airlines and the airports more for that matter, is that we stay open. We open all the hours open, and we'll be there to accommodate whenever they arrive.
Yeah, we are seeming to be struggling a bit with our line, so we beg that you do bear with us. William, I'm going to move through to you. I've got a scenario for you, and I'm hoping you'll be able to help me out. So I'm traveling from Nigeria. I arrive in South Africa, and unfortunately, I've tested positive. I'm obviously away from home, and I need to self. Is this an option that hotels offer?
Lance, absolutely. Radisson stayed open through the hard lockdown through level 5, level 4. And we believed that if we closed, the only thing that we could guarantee was 0.00 revenue. So we stayed open and we looked for business. And you found a lot of people, travelers were trapped. And we developed COVID protocols for people awaiting test results, people serving isolation, and COVID positive patients who had to isolate for up to 14 days. It's a difficult time for anyone to be alone over that period of time while they're still worried about their health and how the disease is going to progress. I mean, I arrived back from Cape Town on Friday night, and as I got off the plane, I got a phone call from someone that I'd been in meetings with to say that they had just tested COVID positive. So I had to go straight to Radisson Blue Sandton, and that was me waiting until I could go and get tested, and fortunately, the result was negative. So I've experienced it from both sides, arranging the protocols and also living through them. But clearly, there can't be any contact between the staff and the guest. We supply 3 litres of water every day. We phone the hotel room 3 times a day just to check on the individual to see if they're in any medical distress, or just to say hello. Sometimes you can't get the guys off the phone because they've had nobody to speak to all day. We supply, all meals are left at the door. The guest would come out, take them into the room, enjoy his meal in the seclusion of his own room. We supply fresh linen and towels and amenities, but the guest has to change that linen for himself. So we supply everything that the guys need. We try to remain as far as we can with some kind of human contact during the period that the guys are isolated. So it's lots of room service dinner, lots of brown paper bags. Laundry comes and goes in different coloured bags. It's taken away and washed at higher temperatures. The linen comes out and gets washed at higher temperatures. When the people leave, hopefully healthy and happy, we bomb the room with sanitizer and we leave it for 48 hours. Then it's deep cleaned and then it's put back into inventory. So there is protocols for that eventuality. And we've been in this situation for so long that the staff are now comfortable that the safety protocols that they operate under, masks, visors, gloves, throwaway overalls, etc., that they are safe to work with people that we know are COVID-19 positive, or we treat them as if they are COVID-19 positive, because that way the protocols remain at the highest possible level. So we developed those protocols very early. It was nervous. We were nervous in the beginning as to how it was going to pan out, but now it's a normal occurrence in a hotel. We isolate quickly, we move the rooms nearby, we move people away, etc., etc., etc. So we try and actually, it's become a process now where we're so comfortable that we're more concerned about the emotional state of the client or the guest, because we're okay with it, but they obviously might not be. So yeah, it's I don't want to say it's the norm, but it is normal that it happens, and we cope with it well seamlessly. We've had a lot of upset, a lot of very sick people, and a lot of people that have just been happy to get out the door, which is not what we always strive for, but it has been happening lately. Yeah. No, Lance, we're completely au fait and very comfortable.
Yeah. Awesome. No, it's great news, and it's great that, you know, no one's been discriminated against. I mean, if that situation had to happen to anyone, I'm sure you'd be very
definitely not. Yeah.
I mean, so it's great to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, also we've
William,
had,
before I,
sorry.
Yeah,
We've
William,
also
before
had
I'm yeah, and I think the delay is getting the best of us. I'll let you go, William.
We've also had staff that have been COVID-19 positive, and we've accommodated them in the hotels. So yeah, I think that the whole point of this aspect of travel is that we've adapted, we've become used to it. We understand what to do when things happen. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's great. That's really great, William. Thank you so much for that. Oz, I'm going to come back to you. I haven't spoken to you in a while now. So it's for me to come back to you. It's about time. So I'm a sales guy, and I'm looking to get back onto the road. I haven't been traveling for a long time. What are some of the tips and elements of my travel that I still need to start thinking about?
I thought I was going to get away with not talking, but the panel's done such an amazing job. So, yeah, listen, I think it's normal. We've had the first phase of people go back into travel, as Andrew alluded to, over the last 6 to 9 months, and we at that time where we're looking at that second group of people that are looking to reignite business travel. Understandably, I know the feeling the first time I got onto an airplane after I think it was about 5 or 6 months of not traveling, and I was really nervous. And I think, you know, my personal experience is probably what everybody else would, especially if you're accustomed to traveling. So one, it's knowing the protocols, knowing what's changed, knowing that I might need to be there a little bit early. I spoke to my travel consultant or my travel manager the night before, which I've never done ever, just to confirm that I needed, you know, if any additional documentation that I needed, what time I should get there, I need to have a mask, you know, sanitizer, those kind of things. So using that expert to navigate the landscape, you know, I think speaking to customers, the new policies, whatever's changed the most pertinent, duty of care, obviously knowing what that supply chain looks like. And I think our guests have really explained the protocols from a car perspective, accommodation, knowing that it's safe and it's clean and hygienic, really important to me, knowing what will I need to do if something happened or if there was delay. So whether it's somebody within my company from an HR perspective or with my travel company, knowing that there's support throughout the journey, so I can speak to somebody or I can chat somebody quickly just to get some insights and information. And you know, just the flexibility, understanding that the behavior is changing. So I normally used to fly 3 weeks or book 3 or 4 weeks before I travel. That's changed. You know, I'm probably a little bit nervous if cases are really, really high. So my booking period, I might be more comfortable only booking a week or 10 or 14 days, which I think we've got to be accommodating for travelers right now. And that advanced purchase rationale that we've had for years probably goes out the window for now, because safety and confidence and comfort for the traveler is very, very important. And then lastly, is just speaking to your travelers. So if I had a good trip or a bad trip, I think it's important as the HR team or whoever's in charge of travel in the organization collates that information to improve the guidelines and enhance the policy for my next trip or for my colleague's trip, or the next, the next journey that either one of us take. That feedback and tweaking of the policy and listening to us, because we might be a little bit nervous, but after the first one, you feel a bit better, and the second trip, and by the third trip, I didn't call my travel manager before my domestic flight because I was quite comfortable and confident. So it's also, getting back onto the horse again and giving it a go, and knowing that you've got support throughout that journey and you've got experts to give you that information whenever you need it.
Yeah. And I take two things there from you, Oz. You mentioned, the travel policy, how important that's up to date to, kind of company protocols, etc. And then the second thing there that you mentioned was really around, that confidence, making sure, you've got the person and the expertise necessary to guide you where relevant. Oz, I'm going to give you one of the questions that's coming. It's exciting because it's from an existing customer. And it reads as follows. As a company, we've been limited to travel. However, my question is, what has been CT's biggest challenge?
Sure. I saw the question, and it's one of my favorite customers. So good to have you on the call. I love all my customers equally, but I just have a special spot for these customers. I think, probably two things. One, we had to take action very early in the pandemic from getting our business remote and resizing, which was incredibly difficult. And I think, the impact and the way our people really bounce back has been fantastic for us, and they've looked after our customers. So on a personal level, that was probably a little bit taxing. But I think on a business level, it's just inventory. We've had such limitations, as we've alluded to, with airlift. We've had limitations with accommodation inventory, especially at the start. And as time has changed, our business is highly skewed internationally. Well, at least it was pre-COVID, and we've got pent-up demand speaking to customers that want to travel and they can't because of limitations or because of inventory. So I think that's the biggest challenge, when your customers want something and you aren't able to give it to them and it's not in your control. But I think we definitely have steps in the right direction that will see that progressively open up in the coming months.
Yeah, and we remain optimists, Oz. So thank you for that. Andrew, I'm gonna come back to you, and I need you to look directly into your crystal ball, because the next question we probably won't have a direct answer to, but I know you've got this one. So, what major trends across corporate do you foresee probably in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I think it's as the panel's spoken about. I think shorter lead-in times before making decisions to travel, choosing a supplier network that has stringent health and COVID protocols in place. I think a level of consolidation with regards to the supplier network of the past to the future. So in the past, where you might have had 2 or 3 car rental companies, you're looking for one. 2 or 3 hotel groups, you're looking for one, because I think everyone's trying to maximize their buck, and that's what we'll see from a consolidation perspective. High levels of automation, although in this pandemic we've seen low levels of automation. We've actually seen customers turn off online booking tools because they wanted to talk to the expert. But I do believe the technology-driven part of the sales process will come back, but probably 12 months from now, when the complexity is out the window and it's more simplistic once more. Certainly high levels of automation. And I think what we'll do is, what I think we'll do, what I see as a business as well, is make sure that we've learned from the lessons in the past of COVID, that no wasteful expenditure, making sure the savings are there. So I think making sure that travel management companies give you accurate savings reports, making sure that when you do travel, you're maximizing the traveler's time. And then obviously one thing we're certainly seeing obviously is security around travelers' movements, that at any given point in time, a company will know exactly where Martin, William, Oz, and Lance are, and if the need is to get them out, get them back quickly, because we learned that in COVID as well. For that sort of this time last year, that's all we were dealing with for a 3-month period, is just actually getting people home very quickly. So I think we've seen that from corporates. Our corporates are asking, we want to make sure our travelers and our employees are secure, and what are the protocols in order to get them back and get them back quickly.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think that's probably the word I've heard the most over this webinar is quickly, efficiency, flexibility, agility. It's all this responding that we need to do to this virus. Andrew, I've got a question for you from our attendees, and this is one we've probably myself and you have debated a few times. Any insights into SAA actually flying at some stage to add more seats nationally or regionally, or if there's any international flights that'll be coming from SAA?
I know we've got our PR company on the call, so I'll give you the political answer. Is that, look, I think we all wish SAA was a viable going concern. And the reality is, if there was no pandemic, we would feel the effects of SAA not being in the market. But I think the pandemic has done SAA no favors. So it's sort of normalized the playing field, hasn't it? Everyone's gone back to zero, and airlines have slowly rebuilt their brand name. And if you just look locally with the Fly Safair guys, and specifically the Airlink guys, they've done a fantastic job in rebuilding their position and their brand in market. I think it will take a massive step, and I don't know what that step looks like, for SA to ever rebound domestically, if that's the route they choose, because that's also a little confusing. Pre-COVID, they were only going to come back on the Cape Town route and concentrate on their profitable routes. But what is a profitable route today? It's non-existent. So I think they're up against it. They're up against it in a big way. Do they come back and, on the African continent and service African routes, which we deeply need and our corporates deeply need? Maybe that's more of the viable option, and that's probably something, if we were ever asked, we would share our opinion. But them getting onto long haul routes back into New York is a good example, with United coming in next week, daily into Johannesburg. It would be highly, United sees that as a competitive route. So it's hard. I think it's very hard, and I think SA Technical, in its time, was a very good business. And now a lot of our corporates, unfortunately, are asking twice, i.e., make sure it's not SAA. What are you doing with my SA Voyager miles? How do I convert those? And the next question's coming on, who services the aircraft? And if it's SA Technical, our corporate customers, due to their travel duty of care and travel policies in place, or sometimes, in most instances, saying book alternatives. So I think there's a lot of brand damage that's happened there. No doubt there would be a huge appetite. So we're all patriotic, and we South Africans, we'd like to get that airline back in the air. But I think it's going to be very difficult for them. It's going to be very difficult for most airlines, but specifically airlines that have gone to business rescue for such a long period of time, and unfortunately, through no fault of their own, have tarnished their brand name, when there is other competitors, probably more efficient competitors, that have sort of capitalized on the last 12 months and will capitalize on the next 12 months. It makes it very difficult, unfortunately, I think, for SA.
Yeah, no, and I agree, Andrew. I think it's definitely going to be a difficult time for them. And, I'm very patriotic, and, we'd love to see SAA back in the sky. That just means more options for our customers, I guess. Thank you so much for that, Andrew. I'm going to move back to you, Oz. And if you could probably just look to wrap this up for us. Traveler preferences, what are travelers going to be looking for going forward? Will business travel ever be the same?
Yeah, so I think it's probably a twofold question. From a traveler perspective, what are probably my learnings and my insights over the last 12 months? Trusted brands. So people want to work with people that they know, be it hotel chains, big car companies. We want to work with people that we're confident is going to take care of us from a health and safety perspective, but also from a security. So reliable supply chain, very, very important. That care, are you looking after me because I'm a little bit nervous? I think that's a big part. I do think, I think Marty alluded to it, longer stays, and bigger rooms. That's going to be my preference. If I'm going to be in Cape Town for 3 days or 4 days, sort of going every month, I might go every 2 months, but stay for 4 or 5 days. Look at an apartment style, so I can probably make my own snacks or food if I want. I've got space to work when I'm not seeing customers in my hotel room quite comfortably. That's going to be important. Hybrid events, we've already seen, I've attended 2 in the last 12 months, so it's definitely, while people are getting more comfortable, people really crave that connection. So definitely I see that. And then the other one is leisure. And I think, there's a lot of loyalty miles out there that many of us who are frequent travelers didn't get to burn in the last 12 months. So as we are able to travel again, we'll probably want to use that for some sort of leisure, or taking a few days off a business trip and enjoying that time being out again. So there's definitely that I see as probably from a traveler trend perspective. I think to your second point, will business travel ever be the same? It probably reminds me, and in fairness, I wasn't in the travel industry during the GFC. All of what I read around when GFC happened in 2007, 2008, and people went, it won't recover, business travel will never be the same. And there's similar sentiment in certain camps in this environment. And we recovered within 2 to 3 years from that. And we've seen, as Andrew mentioned earlier, we've seen most markets where vaccine programs are rolled out, that they're recovering 30, 50, 60%, and they'll lead the way to that. And vaccines is quite pertinent. South Africa, there's pent-up demand. We've used to be in travel. I spent, I lost the number, and Andrew, I know personally, the amount of time we spend on planes, we used to it. It's part of our culture. It's part of the way we work. There is a pent-up demand and people needing to see others. So I think South Africans have that. I also think CFOs are really looking at travel. We've had a year off it. They're looking at their growth plans for the new year. We know Africa has always been major growth. We know Europe has been growth for South African companies. And they've had a year with very little travel spend in certain aspects. And they see travel as a catalyst for growth. And they're reviewing that and speaking to CFOs. Many of them are reviewing that at the moment. So they're planning for rebuilding and regrowth of the industry from a business travel perspective. So I'm quite confident that'll come through in the coming months and years. And I think let's not underplay the power of human connection. I posted this article a few days ago from the Wall Street Journal on LinkedIn, that the Zoom CEO, so of all the people in the world, all CEOs in the world, the Zoom CEO says he has Zoom fatigue. So, there's a hint of irony in that, but it's factual. I think we're all exhausted by hours and hours of Zoom. We thrive on human connection, engagement, and some jobs cannot be done virtually. So you have to physically move people. Some jobs just aren't as productive to do virtually. And some jobs you want to do in person, and relationships and are a really key part of business. So I see as it's safe and as borders open, I definitely see business travel will recover. It will look a little bit different. The world in the future will be blended. There will be a combination of virtual and in person, but business see from a growth perspective, but that human connection element, I think all the panelists alluded to, is a key catalyst for company cultures and company growth now and into the future, and business growth and those relationships.
I can definitely agree with the Zoom fatigue notions. I certainly know I've had my own instances of Zoom fatigue. It's been a great day. It's been a great day. I want to thank my panelists and attendees for today's session. I've certainly learned a lot myself, and I hope our attendees have picked up a few nuggets. It's encouraging to see what's happening in the car rental space, Martin and William. The work that you guys are doing in the hotel industry is fantastic. I'm excited about the vaccine rollout. I think it brings a lot of positivities, particularly for the travel industry and what's to happen. From me, my name is Lance Nkwe. This has been an exclusive Corporate Traveler webinar. Till next time, ciao.